Welcome to Championship Culture. We got a special guest with us tonight. It's a first. We've got our first baseball coach that's ever come on the podcast, and we went right to the top. We got a former state champ. Jason Fussell is our guest tonight. Jason is a family man. He's active in his church. He's a former head football coach, but his true love is baseball. He played for he came in second in the state in 2013. Won the state championship in 2014, and then came in third in the state in 2015. So he is widely regarded as one of the best baseball coaches in the state. He's also the athletic director, and I didn't say this part, at Hopton High School. So he's there with me. If I was going to describe Jason, I'd say he was extremely organized and detailed, and very good community relations guy. So, Jason, thanks for doing it. Jason really doesn't like doing this kind of stuff. I had to convince him to do it, and I don't know why, because every time I've ever seen him talk, he always does a great job. But I thank you for doing this, man, and I'm excited to have you on here and excited to learn from you. So we're going to jump right into it. So question number one, can you give a 1-minute elevator introduction of yourself?
Yeah, Coach. Thank you for letting me be here. You know this is out my comfort zone, but I guess that's what makes you better anyway. As he said, I'm the baseball coach and athletic director at Hopton High School, going into my second year. Unfortunately, we didn't get to finish the year last year, so I guess this baseball season will be like 1.5. I've been a head baseball coach for 16 years. Jumped out the gate out of college. I was from Wallace Rose Hill High School. They offered me a job at Midway, and I went there not knowing a thing other than the culture stuff. I was brought up in the backbone of culture at Wallace, playing football for Jack Holly. So that was one thing I had an idea of, is how to bring a group of kids together. So that was my strength when I went there. I just got lucky that first year. We ended up going to the fourth round. They kept me around for a while. I was a head football coach, as Coach said, for 4 years. I was a position coach in football for 12. Offensive coordinator for 7, DC for 2 years, and I've been an athletic director for 11. And I'm very fortunate to have worked with many great teams, coaches. I've been able to build a program, and I've seen a bunch go to the next level. So I'm thankful to all those folks that made these things happen for me, because as you coaches know, it's not about just us. It's the community, it's the kids, it's the past kids, and they're the ones that are leaders that help us go to the next level.
Name a couple of those guys, because you got quite a few that are in the majors. Can you name just a couple off the top of your head? I know I'm surprising you on that one.
I was fortunate enough to coach Matthew Barefoot. He plays for the Astros right now. I coached Chandler Williford and Cameron Barefoot. They're currently with Campbell. Cal Tyndall at Garner. Sawyer Sutton's going to be going to UNCW. I had a kid that played football for me that was great. He's at St. Aug right now. Hopefully he'll stay his senior year. Heck of an H-back for him. And then Austin Rayner, he was another one. He went to Wingate. He was a quarterback, and it won't for him. So he came home, and he's built a wiffle ball empire off of it. So the culture thing built into him, and he was excited. So he brought it back and made his own little league that benefits charities and things. So those are some guys I was fortunate enough to be around.
Awesome. All right, question number 2, how do you define culture in your program?
The book is a common set of beliefs, ideals among a group of folks. To me, it's the behaviors of a group and the sense of pride that surrounds that group. So everything I do with kids is our players. I try to make them know there's a sense of pride they need to have that rubs off and is infectious among the community, the people that watch them, and the younger kids. And those traits get passed down to future players. I mean, I'm constantly having them talk to little leaguers, middle schoolers, parents, put them out there in front of business owners. So basically it goes around that sense of pride. There's nothing better than seeing kids wear Hopton High School stuff in the community. They got their hats, they got their baseball, they got their football stuff on, and especially not just the high school kids, but when you see a 5-year-old walking around with a Hopton High School football, baseball, basketball shirt, that's something that gets you excited. And another one, if you talk about culture, and I'll probably hit this again on another question with Coach in a minute, you kind of know when culture is not about the wins and losses, but it's about what gets passed down to the next group, and so to speak. So I had a kid that played for us, probably one of the worst starts we ever had in baseball. We go from the Eastern Championship to 0-8 the next year. And this kid was a senior. His brother played, his cousin played, his uncle played for me, the whole crew. So we left that 8th loss, and he called a team meeting in the dugout. And basically, when you know culture's made it, this kid stood up in front of all of them and said, I've only had one at bat all year. I'm not going to play. I know I'm not as good as you guys. And he went on this whole story with everybody. Told them about the way things have been done 5 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, the way his brother felt when he played. Well, he turned that thing around into a 16-8 year in a 3rd round playoff appearance where we lost to Edenton Holmes. So naturally, I didn't care about the kid's stats that year. That was my MVP. At the banquet, that's the guy that got everything. I didn't turn it around, but some things we had done, he was able to carry that enough pride in himself that he turned it around with the group. So that's culture to me.
That was awesome. That made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I think you've told me that story before, but you just nailed it, man. That's culture. Tell me about that. And I'm going off script on you, but baseball always does a great job of, the pride in the sport. Like when it's a big deal about running onto the field and running off of the field. Can you talk about that a little bit? That always, on all good baseball teams, they seem to there's not just pride in your team, but there's pride in the sport of baseball. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. As you know, baseball is such a slow game to play. So at practice, it's one of those things where you instill in the kids to run to first base, run everything out, hustle back to the dugout. And basically one of my character traits is humility. The ability, it's a game of failure, in other words, where 1 for 3 is a good batting average. 333 is an excellent batting average in baseball. But in standards in math, 1 for 3 seems like failure. I get 1 out of 3 right on a test, and I'm failing. So with that aspect of it, the humility culture trait I have that I go over with the guys is when you strike out, you hustle back to the dugout. When you hit a fly ball to right field, they're going to catch it. You try to get to second anyway. I mean, you just hustle all the time when you're on base. In between innings, you bust it in and bust it out because it is such a slow game. Is what I harp at into practice is that it's not like football. I mean, only the coach is going to watch film and know you missed that block. Baseball is a game where everybody and their brother sees what you're doing. They see the emotions you're carrying. They see that if you walk back to the dugout after a strikeout, the losing mentality that you're showing right there. So that humility factor is kind of one of those things, I guess, that's in baseball that guys always have to carry that sense of pride with them because everybody sees it. Like I said, in football, if you're calling a play, coach, you're gonna know he missed the block, but mom and dad in the stands don't see that. So that's the difference I believe in the football aspect and the baseball is just the fact that they see your mentality outright.
I've talked about that before. I think physically, probably wrestling's the toughest one, and then football comes in second. But talking about just mental toughness, baseball's got to be way up there at the top, just because it's such a failure sport. You got to be mentally tough to be able to handle that failure and still keep positive and move forward. So I've always admired those two things. I've always admired how the kids hustle out of hustle onto the field, hustle off the field, and then I've admired that the ability to fight through that mental part of the game because they're facing so much. It's such a failure sport that they got to be mentally tough in order to excel. And I've always appreciated that about baseball. All right, number 3. What are the 3 best things you do to build culture in your program?
All right. Like we've talked about, baseball's a game where you're with them every day. It's a slower game than football or basketball. And there's a lot of components in baseball. So I know Coach Salas does a great job of having a culture trait of the day. In baseball, I kind of break them up, and that's how in baseball, a kid, like he said, mentally is more worried about their batting average or how many home runs they hit. So in baseball, I break them down, and that's how we review games. I don't go in there and talk about we struck out 20 times or this was the pitch strike ratio or whatever, or ball strike ratio. Instead, I go in there and my top 3 that I hit every day after every game are control the controllable, attention to detail, and leadership. Those are the 3 big ones because they can apply to any setting you're in. The rest of them is kind of one of those things where if you saw that culture trait being broken in the game, you got to address it the next day because that's a problem. But these three here reflect on the game. Control the controllable. For example, if you're hitting, it's your job to hit the baseball. You see too many times in the pros or college or even high school and little league where the umpire calls a strike. They thought it wasn't a strike. They struck them out, and they get all out of sorts and crazy. So I teach control the controllable because that's his job to call a game. You're going to make an error. You're going to make a mistake. It's your job to take advantage of the 120 pitches that are thrown in that game. So if you can't control that, then that's your problem. We don't need to hear about it. Bust it back to the dugout and get it to the next guy. So that's the control the controllable part. The attention to detail, as Coach said, baseball is a game where you hustle in, hustle out, those things I look at. The fine details of all ball games, which all football coaches know that. They watch film. They pay attention to every detail. I have to have these baseball kids. They have to pay attention to detail themselves. It goes to the fact practice starts at 3:30. Well, in your mind, it starts at 3:25. This is the way we stretch. So every one of you is accountable for stretching that way. If this is the way we take infield, outfield, then everybody's got to be on pace that day. And the kids can kind of test themselves, grade themselves or whatever. If you get into a good baseball practice and you're doing it right, you'll see the kids take a little bit of ownership of that, and they'll bust on the kids that aren't paying attention to the fine details. And that goes into their grades, what they do in the schoolhouse, the community, all those things too. That's the attention to detail component. Which if you get a kid that's really good attention to detail in the game of baseball, he's gonna be special. I mean, if he's a 99% guy, I mean he's gonna be that guy. And then leadership. Leadership's a big one. Baseball is one of those games where everybody can be the quarterback. Everybody can be the middle linebacker. Everybody's got their own set of jobs. Left fielder, outfielder, they all have different responsibilities. So in that, everybody, when they play with me, everybody's got their own little aspect they have to handle. So they're all going to be a leader one way or the other. Also, that goes into the camps, helping out the lower schools. The leadership component, they better be leading these kids to be a part of that positive culture. And then seniors, this is a big one. I know people talk about wins and losses all the time. I like to win, you like to win. But the seniors' job is to set the bar for the next class. And I say set the bar because when I came to Hobden, that was the senior slogan. That's what they were going to leave with everybody. So they said, we're going to set the bar. It's up to the juniors next year when they get up to do the same thing. That's community, grades, camps, how they get to the game, how they do the game, workouts, having most of them there at every workout or 80% attendance rate. So those are the three areas of culture that I can focus on every day. The rest of them is I kind of feed it to them a week at a time or in preseason. They get a new one every day, and I throw them in that scenario to kind of teach the trait to them. So like Coach Salas might be in a hitting drill right now to show him humility. I'm automatically going to put the cards against him to see how he handles that situation. I know it's a mind game, but I want to see how those kids react. That way, at the end of practice, we can reflect on that trait that day in the preseason. And everybody they get a clear picture of what I'm talking about. And that we don't need to talk about that again. If we do, then there was a problem in that game. So those are the three big culture traits I have that I harp on religiously with guys.
When you were talking, it reminded me probably the most visual difference from when you came in last year was your off-season workouts. You know, I remember the previous year they'd have off-season workouts and there'd be 4 or 5 guys there, and then when you got there, you know, it looked. I said one time that looks like football. You know, you had everyone out there, everyone committed, and I knew then you guys were going to have a big year, and you know, unfortunately, COVID, and I thought you handled the COVID thing. I thought you'd be going crazy. You know, you guys were undefeated going into COVID, and it looked like it never, you know, it never threw you off kilter. You know, I guess that's the controllable. You just kept motoring straight ahead and made sure you did good things for their senior night, and you know, but I don't know if I could have took it as well as you did, especially with that team you had. All right. Question number 4, and you're old enough now. This should be a good one. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
This is the big one. I had a principal one time. I had a young group of varsity players out there. And this was another baseball scenario. And I'll never forget, we were at Spring Creek, and I thought we should have been handling that game. It was game one of the year. We're down by 2 runs going into the 6th, and I'm over there just wigging out. I mean, it wasn't pretty. You could imagine 24 years old or so, and hot-headed and grown up thinking things should be this way. And I mean, I was hard-headed. But at the end of the game, the principal called me to the side and said, "I'm going to teach you the 3 Ps: positive, patience, and presence." And the next day, I thought about it that night, and I went in his office and asked him. And this is something I carried with me every single day coaching from then on out. And even a coach one time asked me what the 3 Ps were in the dugout. And I said, "That ain't for them, that's for me." To make sure I remember what I need to do to make this a good situation for these youngins. So the positive, always finding the positive after a mistake. I preach to the kids, and I make sure my coaches do, that if Coach Salas makes an error, makes a mistake, anything in the game situation or practice, we better find a positive very quickly for that young man to build off of. I mean, I might jump him for a minute, but I'm going to set that situation up where in the next 2 or 3 balls, he's getting something that he can make into a positive. And then we're going to get really pumped up about it, and he's going to get better. Patience. This was my big one. That 0-8 year, if I hadn't learned this prior to that, I'd have lost all those kids. I'm dead honest. Year 2, year 3 of me going to versus year, I guess, 2016 when we were 0-8. Kids don't get it day one. They're young. Like Coach says all the time about this COVID thing, they're not afraid. So they're going to jump into a situation right now. And if I learned that, I'm glad I got taught that patience tip, because if I'd have done that year 2, if it been year 2 or 3 or 0-8, I'd have lost every kid, like I said. So the patience thing, I got to understand that there's things we got to work on. I can tear them down a little bit, but when we get to practice, I'm automatically attacking the things we messed up on. And then there's a teaching moment behind it. And that's something I didn't have when I was younger. And then presence. As a coach, you're a role model to those kids on the field. So win, loss, good or bad, they've got to see that presence out of us. And like I said, years 2, 3, 4, if the game's going bad, I was going to show it. The COVID thing, I was going to show it. But being older now and understand the presence factor is, I got to understand I'm the one guy that can't show it. The umpire makes a bad call, I can't go out there and go belligerent. Be tactful how I answer it. The same thing is when you see the parents yell at the kids during the game, it reflects negatively on them. So my presence dictates during the game is how positive those kids are going to be. Because you know as good as I do, if stuff's not going the way you planned it, that mental toughness part, no matter what sport you play, if the coach's presence isn't there, then those kids are going to go backwards. That's the difference. A good example I got, which I praise Coach Salas on this one, is that North Duplin game, which I'll let him explain that to folks anytime he wants. But that presence he had to go out there is what I'm reflecting on. I didn't have that when I was younger. I'd have never done that at that time, but that sold those kids that they were going to win that ball game. So that's the presence factor. And that's it on the 3 Ps.
That's awesome, man. All right. Question number 5. What your contact information and then anything you want to promote. So I know you're not a social media guy, so you want to give your email out?
J Fussell at sampson.k12.nc.us. And like you said, I'm not a big social media guy, but I do have a little Twitter at Hobden. It's at Hobden Baseball at Twitter. Things I follow there to teach guys are Line Drive Pro on Twitter. And then
say it one more time. I didn't know about that one. Hobden Baseball.
It's at Hobden Baseball.
Okay, I didn't know you had that.
Yeah, and Line Drive Pro is a good one for all baseball guys, talking about culture and how to deliver practices to kids. And then since coming to Hobden, some of the kids showed me the Coach Joe Salas YouTube, which are good things. I'm not an air raid guy, but I do enjoy watching it because they're great presentations. And anytime he talks about culture and those things, it's worth a look.
All right. So if they tried to message you through the Hopton baseball. That comes straight to you, so that's a good way to get to you.
Great to me, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that, man. See, you surprised me. I thought you were zero social media. Anything else you want to promote? Have you set your dates on your camp? You do a great job on your little kids camp. I'm stealing all those ideas. Have you set that up yet, or are we waiting until COVID?
No, we're waiting on this COVID thing to see what the details are come second semester when we get to play. We've just got all our schedules for second semester. So when we find a date there, we'll let the community know, and the kids will be out there finding some kids to come.
Hey, go ahead. Your camp's so good. Can you just give like a little 30-second how you organize it? You do it during the season on a Saturday. Can you just talk about it for just a second?
Oh yeah. The camp is usually set for the first Saturday of the season, so we've got a chance to play 1 or 2 games in the season. We go about the month before, and we go out in the community and pass out flyers, talk to kids, get them to come to the camp. And the reason it's set during the seasons, I usually take 1 practice. And at the beginning of the year, you know how everybody's green. You're still having to go over your culture stuff, your game plan. So at that time of the year, I'm usually going through drills that we would do at the camp or talking about things that need to be talked about at the camp. So then we take the kids, they come out, I give the opening, I give the hitting instruction, and then they're broken up by grade level or ability level. At that point, it's our kids' job on their cards. They know all the drills, they know what they're doing, they've done them at practice, and they know the culture trait that they're carrying in that. There's usually 7 stations. So they know what they're going to be talking about in those stations and what they're going to be teaching. So our kids actually teach it. And then the part that I've found over the years that really is a good thing with the young kids is I invite the parents to follow their kids around to the stations. So they hear the same things, and they're not hearing it from me. They're hearing it from a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid that can regurgitate what I've been telling just like an adult. So that's the benefit of the camp. It kind of attacks 2 ways. It attacks community, and it attacks your kids being leaders and affecting positively the future players you may have.
So I'm trying to steal every bit of that because it was just it's a 1-day thing. Your kids are leading it. You're getting great community relations bang out of it. I just thought that was the best little kids camp ideas that I've ever seen. And of course, COVID got us all on that one because I was going to copy it exactly like yours this year. Maybe we got to look at the schedule and see if we can still get it done. But Jason, man, I told you you're going to do fantastic. You did great. I appreciate you being on here, man. And I guess I'll see you Monday. I don't get to say that very often, but I'll see you Monday. This will come on. This will come on tomorrow. This will be on Saturday. It'll be on the podcast and the YouTube Saturday morning. But I appreciate you doing this, man.
Thank you, Coach Salas. Appreciate it.